Bottom of the hour, I'm going to get into the latest developments dealing with the economy, what's happening in North Africa and the Middle East. The king of Jordan has had the government step down and put a new puppet government into place because of the demonstrations and protesting that's happening there. We'll get into another federal court ruling against Obamacare, using Obama's own statements about how you can't make people buy houses so they won't be homeless, and you can't make people buy health insurance who can't afford it. So that is all coming up. And I want to open the phones up in the last half hour of this hour. The toll-free number to join us on any of the subjects we've been discussing here is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. For the next 20 minutes, we've got a big announcement that just is launching today, I'm told, and that is a group of doctors and health practitioners, MDs, PhDs, NDs, coming together with a public document, just like the scientists and toxicologists have done that with the sodium fluoride, exposing how dangerous it is. And one of the leaders in this movement is Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, the health rangers involved as well, Mike Adams. She, of course, is a respected medical doctor and is one of the country's most knowledgeable and outspoken physicians regarding the use of vaccines on health. As a member of the prestigious National Speakers Association, Dr. Tenpenny is an outspoken advocate of free choice in health care, including the right to refuse vaccination. She's a graduate of University of Toledo, Ohio. She received her medical training at Kirksville College in osteopathic medicine in Kirksville, Missouri. Dr. Tenpenny is board certified in emergency medicine and, of course, is also an author. drtenpenny.com is the site. But I wanted to go over this big move, forming this organization of doctors who are the ones that actually have the facts on what Big Pharma is doing. But first, there's a lot of reports, vaccines being recalled for pig viruses that can cause HIV-type illnesses in the pigs, very closely associated to human autoimmune disorders and cancers. We're seeing reports of tenfold increases in seizures in England, so the government took one of the flu vaccines off the market. I mean, we saw record low numbers of people in 2009 and now last year taking the flu shot. We even saw the British Medical Journal come out and admit that that was basically all a hoax. Wolfgang Wodarg, the head of the EU Commission at the time, was on this show saying that the whole H1N1 situation was a fraud, vindicating and confirming Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, Dr. Blaylock, and countless other doctors and scientists that have been talking about this. So I wanted to go over the fact that they are trying to push worldwide for forced inoculation. And they're intimidating people in their places of work and other things. And but the battle is joined. People are really starting to wake up to this. And Dr. Sherri Tenpenny joins us with this big new announcement. Doc, thanks for coming on with us.
Thank you for having me, Alex. Good afternoon.
Good to have you here. Let's get into some of the latest developments dealing with vaccines and the hundreds they're trying to get approved and some of the adverse reactions. Then let's get into this big new announcement with the vaccinecouncil.org, a special report.
The backdrop of what you said about how many vaccines are coming down the pike, there was a Business Wire news announcement that came out about 2 weeks ago out of Pennsylvania that said that there were 330 vaccines currently in development. There were 95 of them currently standing by waiting for approval. Now, we know from the politics and from the government rules in this country that most of those vaccines are going to end up in the pediatric vaccination schedule in order for the companies to have liability protection to keep from getting sued. So we've got another, not only do we already have 40 doses of 16 different vaccines that kids get by the time that they're in kindergarten, we've got dozens more coming down the line, probably mostly being targeted at adolescents, because that is the big push inside the vaccine industry, is to get the teens vaccinated.
And, of course, for those that don't know, once they can have a governor or somebody mandate it, the media then runs the hoax and says you must take it. But once it's mandated by government, then it gets liability protection like the Gardasil. If it kills you, well, that's too bad because they've got liability protection.
That's correct. That's correct.
Incredible. And I just, following the news, I see reports of deaths and convulsions and all sorts of autoimmune responses are just pouring out everywhere. And even the Australian government is being honest about it and saying, yeah, these vaccines are killing people.
Yes, and as far as we know right now, that as of about the 1st of January 2011, that there are at least 87 confirmed deaths from the Gardasil vaccine. And so we have confirmed deaths. We are taking teenagers who were perfectly healthy. They were scholars and athletes and musicians, and we give them this Gardasil vaccine, and then shortly after that, they either have seizure disorders, autoimmune disorders, or they die. And yet the government now, not only do they not call that off the market, now what they're doing is doubling their market share by recommending the Gardasil vaccine for little boys. So what we've done with this document, Alex, is this the International Medical Council on Vaccination, which is vaccinationcouncil.org, put together a group. Well, I started this document with Dr. Suzanne Humphreys. We started it about a year ago, and we wanted to make just some cliff notes, some very salient points that parents and activists could use to make the point that vaccines are not safe, they're not effective, they don't protect you, and yes, they're harmful. And then from there, what we said was, I wonder how many other doctors would agree with us. And when we released this document, there are 70 physicians, MDs, DOs, a few chiropractors, some RNs, some PhDs, but 70 people that you've never heard of, people that are not mainstream like you and I are, or Dr. Blaylock, and have said, come forward to say, yes, we agree in principle with this document that we want to stop vaccination, and we think it's a 200-year mistake. So one of our goals with releasing this, and with the help of Mike Adams through Natural News and through your show and some other radio programs today, is that we're wanting to collect a million signatures of people that, in principle, can get behind this. If you're an MD, a DO, a healthcare worker that practices in a conventional situation, even like a respiratory therapist or an X-ray tech, a nurse, a pharmacist. The third category is if you're a healthcare worker that doesn't practice in a conventional setting, or if you are just a concerned citizen, a non-healthcare worker, that you believe in principles with these documents that vaccines can cause problems. We're asking you to get on board so we can have those signatures and go to the state legislators and ensure and get legislation passed to ensure your right to say no.
So bottom line, a year of deep research, doctors and prestigious scientists all over the world signing onto this, tacking, this letter, to the door of the corrupt big pharma trying to take over medicine, the unbelievable carnage caused by them. And this is a huge offensive in defense of medical choice and against this medical tyranny. Very, very exciting, and I'm glad you're announcing this and launching it here today. VaccineCouncil.org. And this is something you need to get into your health departments, into your public schools, into decision makers so they understand that a large body of prestigious medical doctors and others are on record and really chronicling with the scientific data the scourge that has become Big Pharma's revolution of pushing vaccines on us. We got to do this now with Bill Gates, launching genetically engineered mosquitoes that forcibly inoculate us when the mosquito sucks our blood. The government's trying to engineer it into food. Go ahead.
The other really cool thing about this document, Alex, and I know through the internet that this will go everywhere, because this document is not only being released in English, it's being released in Greek, Spanish, Hebrew, French, Turkish, Dutch, Russian, and Icelandic even.
And Turkish.
We're waiting for documents to come back from Norway, Chinese, and Japan. And so we've got physicians and practitioners all over the world that are signing on to this and saying we support the fact that vaccination is causing more harm than good and it must be stopped.
Now let's codify the information folks will find at vaccinecouncil.org and what you're hoping people will do with this information.
What I really want people to do is to go out and read the document. And quite frankly, Alex, there's most of the things that are in there, unless you're completely new to the vaccine industry and are just now sticking your toe in the water to find out what all of this nonsense is about. Most of this information are things that you can find readily elsewhere. We just pulled it all together and put it in one concise document. And I believe that what the government is doing, when they did with SARS, with bird flu, with swine flu, what they've actually done to Dr. Wakefield in their sense of punitive symbolism of what they are doing, what they have done to him, they are taking the American public and the Canadians and all these other people who maybe never even thought to question vaccines and are pulling their head up out of the sand and going, wow, maybe I ought to look into this. And the vast majority of people who do serious research and looking into the problems associated with vaccines say, wow, I'm not doing that anymore, I stop. So the harder they push, the more that they're finding that the grassroots revolution is starting against this whole set of ways that we're making our children the sickest children in the world.
Well, we could talk for hours about this. We'll definitely have you back in the next month after this operation is launched. But going through these, it's a list of MDs, PhDs, NDs, and other medical professionals who are signing on to the document, why vaccines have never been proven safe or effective, a list of some of the serious health side effects caused by vaccines. Of course, I know that's actually what they're meant to do. Why autism is associated with vaccines, the profit motivation behind the pharmacological industry's big vaccine push, a list of which institutions and organizations profit from your sickness, the shocking truth about what's in vaccines, aborted fetal tissue, 59 different chemicals, DNA from diseased animals, and more, an overview of some of the most dangerous vaccine ingredients, the truth about conflicts of interest, that's the big one, in the vaccine community, I would add the media, and why doctors profit from vaccination policies, why vaccinated children are far worse health outcomes than unvaccinated children, how to opt out of mandatory vaccines, important advice for parents about how to protect the health of your children while saying no to vaccines, online resources for learning about the dangers of vaccines, a list of recommended reading material for further education. I mean, this is a masterstroke of codified information. When we come back in this next segment, Dr. Tenpenny, I want to just briefly have you go over some of the most important subsections that I just listed here. Listeners, you know the truth. You've done the research. This is all codified, put together, very easy to understand, very well documented. Get it out to everyone. This is a very important initiative. We'll be right back. Okay, Dr. Sherri Tenpenny is our guest. And if you look at all the statistics, the numbers, the globalist hoax of vaccines is caving in. But they're rushing forward, trying to force us back under their control. Dr. Sherri Tenpenny, of those points I ran over with this big launch today, that you have put out, the vaccinationcouncil.org, very exciting information. Of those points that this sheet documents and links to larger reports on that everybody should read, what is most important?
I think what the most important thing is, Alex, is the fact that, number one, you cannot unvaccinate. So illnesses come and go, like the flu, pertussis, whatever. Illnesses come and go. But if you vaccinate and you have a reaction, you cannot unvaccinate. And health doesn't come through a needle. We know that. Illnesses come and go. Health does not come through a needle. And you can vaccinate and you can still get the disease. And each shot is really like Russian roulette. You never know when you're going to get the bullet to your head. And if pro-vaccine folks claim that reactions are 1 in a million, they're referring to the most serious reactions. They never mention the millions of reactions that cause problems that do not result into death. So I believe that there's thousands that have never vaccinated, but I think it's a rare parent who wishes that they would. And I think that all the information in here is so concise and that there are so many links. And if people want to go directly to the document, if they go to drtenpenny.com, on the home page, there's a link to the document. There's a link to where you can sign up for your support of the document. And I think that we can get a lot of traction out of this, Alex, to get a huge number of healthcare workers to come out of the closet and stand up to say, I don't want to be vaccinated in order to get a job. I want a lot of parents to come forth and say, I don't want my kids vaccinated in order to go to a very expensive college education. We've got to be able to ensure that people have the right to say no.
Well, I totally agree, and of course our IQs are dropping. When you talk about us having one of the most unhealthy populations in the world, no one can deny it. You've got Bayer Pharmaceutical caught for 10 years shipping out Factor VIII, knowing it had HIV and hepatitis. I mean, it's time for these groups to be held accountable and to stop getting away with it.
Absolutely. And accountability is the thing. I mean, they are so protected by the government, everybody from the top down. The pharmaceutical industries are protected, the doctors, the nurses at the public health department, everybody is protected. What other industry out there is like that?